Continuing on with part 2 of these leaks from this supposed source that worked on the set of Game of Thrones, in this video we're going to be discussing what takes place in the last few episodes. Now, like with all these videos, I don't really feel like I should have to say this again, but this is to be taken with a grain of salt and is most likely a load of shit. All of these plot leaks are most likely fake, but they do one thing, and that's entertain us throughout this long night. Let's begin. Before we get started, please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 42069. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then make sure you have your notifications turned on all the way, so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video. Here it comes, throughout this long night. Okay, so we last sort of left off with the Night King being destroyed, and this was taking place towards the end of episode 4. Now, they did include a little bit of information about the Night King and, what happens with that, but ultimately they just said that some sort of ritual has to be done. Bran figures this out, realizes that Bran can't exist as long as the Night King exists, so him and the Night King dies. So that brings the death total, and the reason why they didn't want to spoil the way the Night King dies is because they said it's a massive spoiler and it would ruin your experience for season 8. I know, load of crap. But anyway, supposedly at this point during the season, the main characters that have died so far are Sansa, Jaime, Bran, and then now the Night King. So, this plot outline picks back up with Daenerys riding on the back of Rhaegal with Jon Snow. While Daenerys and Jon Snow ride to King's Landing, they actually fly straight to the Red Keep and go ahead and start taking out Cersei. There are a few others that are supposedly being taken in through the underground route into King's Landing, very similar to the way Grey Worm snuck into Casterly Rock last season. So Arya is the one that's leading this band of troops, and while they're going through the Red Keep and through the underground cells to get up to the Red Keep, they end up running into the mountain. This is where we supposedly have Clegane Bowl 2.0. Now, it's not nowhere near on the epic scale that everyone thinks it would be. It's more so just a quick fight between Arya, the Hound, and Sandor. They didn't mention exactly what happened during this fight, but they did say the final blow is by Arya, and she uses the cat's paw dagger to strike the mountain in the chest, while Sandor hits him in the back with dragonglass. They don't go into the explanation of why dragonglass is the only way, or the combination of Valyrian steel and dragonglass are the only way to kill the mountain, but they did mention that they tried several different ways. They even tried to remove his head, and it didn't really work because his muscles were so thick and they weren't able to get through his armor. So the way that they devised to kill the mountain is by using a piece of dragonglass and Valyrian steel at the same time. Kind of makes sense because he is a pseudo-white, but not really. Anyway, continuing on. Arya and her group make it all the way up to the Red Keep, and they barge in just as Daenerys and Jon Snow land with Rhaegal on top of the Red Keep. Now, the reason why Jon and Daenerys are riding Rhaegal and not Drogon isn't exactly explained, but I think for the most part, Drogon was destroyed during that initial part 2 fight with the Night King. Now, it doesn't say whether he's destroyed or whether he was gravely injured, but he's definitely missing from these key scenes. Now, Rhaegal is actually described as being the same size that Drogon was at the end of season 7. So, Jon and Daenerys end up storming the Red Keep. Cersei tries to do her usual backing out of the situation, basically lying her ass off and saying that the reason why things didn't go as planned is because Euron betrayed her and it had nothing to do with her. It was all his idea. Well, at this point in the show, Euron is dead, so he has no way of talking for himself. But that scene continues on for a little bit with Cersei trying to, explain her side of things, and no one's really hearing it. Cersei then mentions how she deserves the right for a fair trial. Daenerys wants to burn her on the spot, but Jon stops her. Tyrion brings up the fact that she wasn't the one who gave the order to have Ned executed, and that Cersei's one redeeming quality is that she does love her children, so she does have a good heart somewhere deep down. Jon interrupts and says that Sansa's death is on her hands as well as many others. There is then a montage scene of Dany's troops storming the city and battling with the remaining Lannister soldiers. There were supposedly over 600 extras used during this scene. And this of course lines up with the leaks that we know that were confirmed from Watched on the Wall. But continuing on here, we then pick back up with Cersei in a cell. She receives a visit from the handmaiden that saw her and Jaime last season. Now this handmaiden has been on the show since season 1, and remember she walked in and discovered Jaime in Cersei's bed. She explains to Cersei that everything is in order and that Qyburn gave the orders to begin the plan of action. It's not clearly explained what that plan is, but we quickly find out that she's planning her escape and is unsuccessful. If she's unsuccessful, she plans to blow up the city. In the last part of the episode, we see Cersei being marched to the dragon pit with an eerie smile on her face. Varys opens the trial with a list of deeds or crimes against humanity that Cersei's done and asks how she plans to defend her actions. She declines to answer and says, "Can we get on with this?" It's Tyrion's turn next, and he attempts to humanize Cersei and make everyone more sympathetic towards her and her cause. She shouts out, "Enough words, half-man! I demand a trial by combat." The episode then cuts to black. I know, it's getting a little bit into fanfiction territory, but we'll discuss towards the end. Continuing on, that was the end of episode 5, so we pick back up with episode 6. Episode 6 begins with Tyrion visiting Cersei in her cell, explaining that she will surely die if she fights, and it was a grave mistake to not escape King's Landing when she was given the chance. This is when Cersei reveals her plan and that she wants Tyrion to help her escape. He ponders it for a bit, but decides that he has no choice. It is made clear that the only person he does this for is for Jaime and her unborn child. Basically, the only reason why he does this is because Jaime did this for him, and Jaime's now dead, so Cersei's still pregnant at this point in the show. Tyrion leaves Cersei's cell and meets with Qyburn, who has been hiding in the shadows. They then discuss the plan. The next shot takes place all over Westeros, and it is shown that the people have begun to rebuild, and we visit every single location we have spent time with in the show, and the moment is described as being extremely beautiful. We then pick back up with Tyrion in the dead of the night, sneaking Cersei out of the city. Qyburn has a boat ready for them, and they sail away into the night. Tyrion shares a few words with Cersei before her departure, but it is unclear what is said. Cersei then asks Qyburn if the wildfire is in place. The next scene picks up at the beginning of Cersei's trial. Just as our main characters make their way from the Red Keep, it explodes to bits in a green cloud of fire. Just then, every part of the city seems to begin to explode. A lot of the remaining cast members are killed during these moments. Rhaegal is included. Chaos then ensues. Cersei is shown in the distance on her ship overlooking it all and drinking wine. This is the last shot of Cersei we ever see in the show. Now, obviously, I have a lot of thoughts for that, and I'm going to save those to the end. After all of this, there's a time jump. Not sure how long, but almost a year. One of the final scenes of the show are of Tyrion's trial. The scene picks up with another Cersei-style march to the Dragon Pit, which we realize the Dragon Pit has been drastically restored. Tyrion and Daenerys then both give a massive speech. Both are clearly distraught, with Daenerys being at a loss for words and mostly crying. Just as Tyrion begins to explain why he should be sent to the wall and not beheaded, a witness is brought in. It's the handmaiden from Cersei's chamber. She confirms that Tyrion plotted with Cersei last season and that he helped her escape her trial. With a sad, long face, Jon declares that Tyrion is to be executed immediately for his treason, and this person mentions that they don't have any info on how that scene goes down, but Tyrion is in fact beheaded by Jon Snow. The very last scene in this show, of its entirety, according to this leak, is filmed like a dream state. The remaining characters are shown having some great feast. We're shown spring again at Winterfell, and then we're ultimately shown Jon and Daenerys in King's Landing at the Dragon Pit for their wedding, and everyone is there. Jon is shown waving at the people with Daenerys on her arm, and he has their baby in hand. Now, first things first, it obviously started to fall apart towards the end. There were some very interesting moments. You guys need to let me know what you think about this down below in the comment section. But as far as Tyrion allowing Cersei to escape, that's one of the few things in this leak that is just completely red flags. There's no way that supposedly Jon and Daenerys allow Cersei to escape and then they don't go looking for her. Now, I guess you could argue that they just want peace and they think that Cersei is just, will never have a chance to come back and fight them. I just don't see that happening. There's no way that Jon and Daenerys would willingly live in a world where they know Cersei's still out there and could potentially destroy everything they've built. So I don't think that it goes down that way. Maybe it is hinted at that Cersei, tries to convince Tyrion to let her escape. Although we did have those leaks from last week claiming that Tyrion does in fact get executed and it's, some sort of betrayal, but we don't know how it is. So I think it could be possible that betrayal, is a mix of different things and not just one thing in particular like this plot leak claims. It could be, trying to help Cersei escape. Will that maybe be the final straw? Maybe both of them are caught and both of them are on trial in that Dragon Pit scene. I'm not exactly sure. I think my main problem with most of this plot leak is the same with all of them, is they sound like fan servicey loads of shit. But the problem with that is that we've heard so many of them. Now, at this point, if it's anything that we don't believe, we can just chalk it up to fan fiction. So I want you guys to let me know down below what you think about this. What do you think about Rhaegal being killed by wildfire? I personally don't think that makes much sense because he's a dragon. Although, if he's caught in some sort of shelter and, you know, the building around him collapses, maybe something like that does go down. I honestly can't really see the show ending with one particular person having that much power like a dragon or just something insane, because you do know that dragons, you know, grow just like crocodiles. They grow nonstop. Whatever they're eating in their environment, they continue to grow up until the day they die. So if Daenerys does in the show with a dragon or something like that with great power, then it doesn't exactly make sense with the whole theme that, you know, the ice and fire parts of magic are linked and you can't have one without the other. So if Bran and the Night King are dead, what's the point of having Daenerys' dragons? I don't really know what to think, but I will say that, you know, just giving you a little bit of background information on this source, that they claim that they were an extra that have, you know, worked on Game of Thrones as an extra since season 5, and they say that since this was the last season and this person has a bunch of experience with, you know, being an extra in the background and obviously being a massive fan of the show, that they were given small excerpts to view just so that the producers and the showrunners could sort of take the reaction from it and maybe adjust things accordingly. So that kind of makes sense. I do know that movies have like screening audiences or test audiences, and sometimes if that audience reacts badly to a certain scene, they'll remove it or just completely change it. So that kind of does add a little bit of credibility. But honestly, like I mentioned in my last video, these people will make up anything to make their leak or their source of information seem more credible. You guys let me know about all that down below. Alright, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank Mother Nature for not cutting out the power on my house while I was making this video, because I am in the middle of Hurricane Florence. The like goal for this video will be 1,000. Please slap a like on this. Make sure you share it throughout the community. I want to make sure you guys are all subscribed and you have your notifications turned on as well. Super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com. My name's Mark, and I want to thank everyone so much for watching. This has been Sir Hunt's Review. Yo, I'm not gonna lie, that wind out there is crazy. I was actually just standing out smoking a cigarette and some ashes blew in my eye. It hurt.